Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Seth Bradley. Thanks for being on the show, Seth.
Yeah, absolutely, Whitney. Really appreciate you having me on.
And Seth is a real estate entrepreneur who has closed billions of dollars in transactions as a real estate attorney, investor, and broker. He's a managing partner of Law Capital Partners, a private equity firm focused on commercial real estate acquisitions, and the managing partner of Bradley Law Limited, a law firm focused on real estate and asset protection. He's also known as a passive income attorney and is the host of the Passive Income Attorney podcast, educating attorneys and other professionals on how to stop trading their time for money so that they can practice when they want to, not because they have to. Seth, welcome to the show. Grateful to have you on. I know you and I had connected a while back, but looking forward to just hearing more about your story. It's an incredible journey to where you're at now. I think it's going to encourage a lot of the listeners. But then too, just learning about your, becoming the passive income attorney and how you're helping these busy professionals. I love how you mentioned in your bio, just, trading their time for money, getting that time back, right. And being in better control of that, taking control of that time. That we all have the same amount of time, right? And we have to choose how we spend it. But, get us started. Give us some background about yourself, because like I said, I know it's going to be an encouraging story for many of the listeners as well.
Yeah, for sure, brother. Again, really grateful to be on. I thank you so much for having me. So, I'm a journeyman of sorts. I started out thinking I wanted to be a doctor, and I went to med school for a little bit. Wasn't into it. I made the really hard decision to walk away. I ended up getting my MBA followed by my law degree. So I've done the whole gamut of graduate school. So if anyone needs advice on that, I'm certainly the guy to talk to. But I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and business and real estate. And, I've reflected on that, but I just, I can't really seem to pinpoint where that came from. It's just really who I am. As I was growing up, I was never really exposed to real estate or entrepreneurship. I grew up in the countryside of West Virginia. I was adopted when I was just a few months old from South Korea by two of the most wonderful people on the planet, my mom and dad. They came from the bluest of collars, though. My dad's a retired coal miner. My mom's a retired grade school teacher. And they are just, the absolute epitome of, work really, really hard, provide for your family, save as much as you can, and really just live a simple and happy life. And that's stuck with me and my sister as well throughout our lives and our ventures. But, I was just never really exposed to entrepreneurship or owning real estate. And it didn't really seem attainable to me while growing up in a very, very small town in West Virginia. But later down the line, I kind of figured that out and figured out that that's exactly what was missing.
Wow. So yeah, just an incredible story. Appreciate you sharing that. Let's get into a little bit how, just why real estate and why moving that direction full time. You have the education, that you've worked so hard to obtain. I know you've worked for some big firms and, you've been in that sector as well. Why try to move away from that now?
Yeah. So, I got my MBA and I started, meeting business people and decided to, take that to the next level. And I went to law school, finished towards the top of my class and ended up getting a really good big law firm job out of law school. And I worked in big law for about 6 years. And at that point I was exposed to real estate because I was a real estate attorney. I still am a real estate attorney, did some corporate law as well and made really good money by, any W-2 person standard. And if I would have stuck with it, I would have made partner, made more money and, you go down that pathway. But I've just always had this underlying kind of entrepreneurial fire to, do more and kind of be out on my own. And I think there were just, a couple of aha moments while I was working at those big firms where, I just started questioning what I was doing. And, the first one was just being part of these big real estate deals. These are $100 million plus acquisitions, financings, and meeting with clients and being on these transactions. And these clients, they weren't Bill Gates and they weren't, the Prince of, South Africa or something. They're just regular guys like you and me. And I just thought, you know what, I want to be on that side of the table. I want to be, the principal on these deals. I want to own the properties. I'm sophisticated enough. I know real estate. So if they can do it, then I can do it. And I'll just go into the second one. The second aha moment was really just kind of seeing some of these guys that were, in their 70s and, they had quote unquote made it, but they were still in the office all the time and they were still practicing a full workload. And along with, all the administrative duties that come along with that. And I just kind of thought to myself, how can this be? I mean, he's making tons of money, or these guys are making tons of money, but why are they still here? Like, why are they still in the office? Like, why aren't they at home or hanging out with their grandkids or on vacation or something? And you get to realize that they're really married to their jobs, and they're really good at what they do. They've spent countless hours perfecting their craft, but they haven't spent those hours living their life. And at that point I was billing tons of hours and working late, no free time, probably not exercising enough, probably drinking too much expensive scotch. And I just realized if I kept down this path, I was going to end up like them. And, that it could be good and bad. I mean, I don't know how their relationships were with their families and stuff, but I didn't want to put that at risk. And, a lot of times your lifestyle follows your paycheck, and you've suddenly acquired what I call and what you've heard of, the golden handcuffs. You make a lot of money, but you spend a lot of money, and then you have all these bills pile up, and all of a sudden you're not able to save, you're not able to invest, and then you have no choice but to keep continuing on that path. And before you know it, you're 70 years old, and what have you got to show for it? You were in the office for 60 hours a week your entire life. So I would prefer to be rich and empty than, or I'm sorry, I don't want to be rich and empty. I want to be wealthy and full. So I started looking for alternative assets, and it eventually led me down to participating in real estate deals.
It's such a big transition, right? And big moment to have that just aha moment, and being willing to say, okay, I'm going to make a change. Because I know personally, I mean, I had to be willing to work 70, 80 hours a week for like 2 years to be able to get the business going while still working full time and doing all these things, right? But then all of a sudden, when I was able to leave the W-2 job, it's a big mindset shift, right? Because I still feel like mentally, like I need to be in the office 60 hours a week or 70. I mean, like I just have to be in there working, or else I'm just not being productive enough. Like it's just that, and I don't have to be now, but it from coming from that, it's like mentally it is such a big shift, and I can see why guys get just stuck in that, and I have to keep going, have to keep going, have to keep going. And so it's difficult transition. But a great one, it's a great one. So tell me about maybe some pushback that you received. I mean, I know personally my W-2 position that I grew up also in a one stoplight town, a little bitty place, a little hole in the wall, my W-2 position that I had before the real estate business, I was probably the biggest income earner in my entire family. And so to leave that to them, I mean, it seemed like such a secure position, right? You got retirement, you got benefits, all these things that they see as so valuable. It's difficult for them to see me walk away from that. So how about yourself?
Yeah, similar. I mean, it's, the people you're close to are a little bit confused. They're like, well, what are you doing? I mean, they would
worked
kill
so
for that
hard.
job. Right. And, I think I'd already shown them that I'm not going to just kind of follow every single straight line path. I mean, I had dropped out of med school already. I mean, that was a huge thing at the time to kind of transition into something else. So, going my own path has just kind of been who I am all along.
Nice. Well, I've received, some pushback there, and I know others that are listening are as well, and thinking through that as they are trying to pursue this real estate business, just like you have done, and walking away from something else. So, tell us now, like your focus, tell us how you're helping individuals now who have, are in those shoes, like you're talking about, and let's talk about that, because I know there's listeners as well that are in those same shoes. They have the corporate position, they're spending 70 hours a week, and they've been doing it for a long time, and they're just dreaming about that time when they can make that transition.
Sure. Well, I got started in real estate in the residential space. I've experienced in fix and flips and fix and holds, house hacks, just about anything. I mean, I love real estate. I don't have anything against residential, and I'll likely continue to look for opportunities in that space. But as you know, and as you know, everybody knows at this point, especially your listeners who are seasoned, it's very difficult to scale, and it takes a lot of transactions, and it's just continually you know next deal, next deal, next deal, and you don't have those economies of scale. So I started looking for, what's the next step. I've been in commercial deals on the legal side. So I started investing passively in syndications and kind of got my feet wet. And that really kind of opened my eyes a little bit more. And I'm an active person, so I wanted to be on the active side. So I started transitioning to that. My company, Law Capital Partners, it's a private equity real estate firm, currently specializing in large multifamily, but we look at other asset types on an opportunistic basis. We're really focused, though, on educating attorneys and other professionals about these types of deals to show them that there is a pathway kind of out of Wall Street, because most attorneys and doctors and folks like that, they're used to just investing in their stocks and bonds and mutual funds through their 401k. But we're trying to show them that pathway to Main Street where, as you know, man, institutional money and intelligent investors have played in that space forever.
And I think that too is a hard transition when you're first opening their mind to like the syndication industry or syndication business, when they're used to, 401k stocks, and just investing in that way. That's the way I was, my thought process was before real estate as well. How do you, I guess, maybe you can speak from this experience as well, or people you're helping, just getting past that, thinking that, really opening their mind to this opportunity in real estate, in the commercial real estate business, as opposed to just putting money in the stock market.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's tough, man. I mean, if you're starting with them from ground zero and they don't know anything about real estate, I mean, you've got to educate them. You've got to be an open book and just answer any questions. And sometimes that's really time consuming, and it's tough to get them over that hump, especially attorneys, because they're very conservative. They're very inquisitive. They're very, they're like, I don't know. I'm doing just fine as I am. Why would I change? But then when you show them these returns, sometimes that can go better or worse too, because they see these returns and they're a lot bigger than what they're used to. And they're like, well, this is too good to be true. So, it just takes a lot of patience and, walking, hand holding and getting them over that hump. And so it really just comes down to education, I think.
What do you find as the typical investor like that? Is it going to be, what I'm going to do, just the minimum on one deal, see how it goes, or they're more gung ho about getting into this business after you've educated them?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's, the first deal is usually the minimum. If you'd let them in for $10,000, they would come in for $10,000. I think that's pretty typical for any passive investor. But after that, yeah, a lot of people, they love it and they get excited about it, and they're like, oh, well, let's take the next step. And they start getting interested in possibly being on the active side and having their own deals.
From just your passive investing experience and how you're helping others as well, what do you like to see as far as when you're talking to an operator in you're talking about being prepared for a downturn? What do you like to see?
Yeah, everybody says that they underwrite conservatively, right? But you've got to really just dig into that underwriting and make sure that their practices, they're practicing what they preach. I mean, for instance, market rent growth. Everybody says typically in the past you've done like 2 or 3% each year, something like that. But right now it makes more sense to underwrite it at zero, at least for the first year. Maybe for the first 2 years. The last deal that we did, we underwrote at 0% market rent growth for the first 2 years. Now that doesn't include the forced appreciation rent growth that we're going to have. But as far as just the market rent growth, 0% for the first couple of years, that's just one instance of, how you can underwrite conservatively. Another one is, taking on less debt, raising more capital for the deal to have more equity so that debt position is a little bit smaller.
Yeah. And what about, as far as, when do you ever have any questions about, reserves or type of financing, anything like that you like to see, or even, and from the legal side as well, which I'd love to, get your opinion about anything as far as their legal docs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, financing, I don't think that's changed too much, even with the pandemic and, the potential downturn. And there's always risk with bridge financing. There's nothing wrong with it. And sometimes that's all you can get because it's a heavy value add of some sort and you can't get agency debt or long-term debt. But, that's a risk. If you can get some sort of a long-term debt, at least 5 years or longer with some extensions, then that can kind of get you through any sort of downturn, or hopefully get you through any sort of downturn. So if you can get that or agency debt, then that's a big risk off the table financing wise.
And anything from the legal docs side, I mean, since that's, kind of your specialty, what do you like to see, as a passive investor working with operators, anything specific that stands out to you as maybe a red flag or something that tells you that, okay, this operator's done his homework?
Yeah, I mean, there were things we had to do differently during the pandemic. We're starting to kind of come out of it now, but initially we had to build in longer due diligence periods with big extensions. You'd normally see a 60 to 90-day close. We would have, 2-3 months of extensions in there, and the sellers were okay with it because, they understood that it was very uncertain times. So, they were okay with that. Other than that, so you don't really see a lot of force majeure type of clauses in your purchase and sale agreements, but we would build something similar to that in order to give us, that extra time if we needed it, or if, the title office closed down, or, we weren't able to get vendors in there or something like that, and no access to the properties. There are different things that we had no idea what was going on. So you just had to build in some creative contingencies like that to make sure that you had an out.
Seth, what do you predict to happen in the next 6 to 12 months, and in the real estate market, and how is that affecting just your plan for the next year for your real estate business?
I mean, nobody knows where it's going to go, right? But I've even seen in the last few months, and I'm not sure when this is aired, but towards the end of 2020, the deals have just picked up incredibly. I mean, everybody's kind of sitting on their hands for a little bit, and now it's just you're seeing a ton of deals kind of see the market, and I think that's going to continue. I think that it was a healthy real estate market before the pandemic. I think it's going to be a healthy market after the pandemic, but there is always that looming, downturn that at some point in time will be due for it. Now, I don't think that we're going to have it in 2021 necessarily, but who knows? Who knows?
Seth, coming from just your family background, but then accomplishing all the education that you did, and now the real estate business, I like to ask people about how they became or gained such a high level of self-discipline. And no doubt you have said you have a very high level of self-discipline. Where did that come from, and how did you gain that? I believe it's so important in being successful in any business, but where did that come from for you?
Yeah, again, I think it came from my parents. I mean, they were just they're blue collar folks, the nicest, most awesome people in the world. And, my dad, coal miner, my mom, a teacher, and they just, they worked, and they didn't hate their job. They worked, and they made a good living. And I think that was instilled for me from day one.
Any habits that you have that you're disciplined about doing, every day that have helped you achieve success?
Sure. Yeah, I have kind of a weird morning routine. I mean, I get up and the first thing I do is 50 push-ups in a row just to kind of wake up, because I get up pretty early. I normally get up around 5 a.m. So it's about right now. And then and then I go kind of do my morning stuff, and then meditate. And then I do a little bit of more of a workout, get my coffee and get going. I like to try to sit down at my computer and get one of those, number one tasks off the table right off the bat, because I think that's when your mind works the best. As soon as you kind of wake up and get the wheels turning, I think that first couple of hours is really when you can get the hardest work done.
Is there a way that you've recently improved your real estate business that we could apply to ours?
Systems. I'm really into systems right now, and building kind of automation, like email automations and funnels, and incorporating automatic texts and things like that, just to, try to make it as systematic and automatic as possible. Because we just, we can't be on the phone 10 hours a day, every single day. We're going to get burnt out. So the more things that you can automate and put into a system, and even assign to a VA, the better off you're going to be in the long run, and the faster and bigger you can build your business.
Any software there specifically you're using to do those things?
I really just use ActiveCampaign mainly for automations and things like that. And I use Upwork for VAs for different assignments. And, I'll give them a small assignment. And then, if they do that well, then I'll just bring them on to do similar assignments more. So if it's graphic design or, email funnels or, things like that, scheduling, I think it's really good to try to train up your VAs because that helps out a lot.
What's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
Well, the podcast is launching pretty soon, so it's probably be launched by the time this is aired. So the podcast and really just getting on webinars and taking on any kind of speaking engagements that I can get on. And I really use social media quite a bit. I use LinkedIn very frequently. I try to post every single day. And then Facebook, there's a lot of really good groups that you can get involved in that have investors that are willing and ready to invest. You just have to find those right groups, and you have to do it in a delicate way. A lot of the people that have these groups, they don't want you just spamming people. So you've got to, add value. So it takes time and effort, but the opportunity's there.
What's a way that you've been able to add value to people through groups like that?
I usually use my legal expertise, either legal or real estate experience. A lot of times, these groups are really interested in residential real estate, right? Because that's what people know. So if I can kind of give them a little bit of a nugget about a fix and flip or a wholesale or something like that, that kind of really gets them interested. And then you kind of open their mind up to commercial and syndications and things like that. It's kind of a step-by-step process.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Outside of God and my parents that I had already mentioned, I would say my discipline. I'm up at 5 a.m. I'm getting started and I work all day. Even though I worked at a big firms for a long time, that was a different type of work. Whitney, that we work like crazy now, but we're working in our business and on our business, and it's enjoyable, right? We can work 12-hour days and it's okay. Whereas if we were in the office working 12-hour days, it's taxing and you just feel bad about it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I hate it. I can't go to work tomorrow. But when you're working on your business, you're doing what you love, then, you can work all day and it's fine. So, but I think the discipline and the time management and that kind of goes hand in hand with everything.
How do you like to give back?
Right now, I have a lot of folks that are kind of thinking about law school or thinking about med school. And I do advise them quite a bit on, what they should do and just think about and have them think about, what do they want to do on the back end? Like, is this something, it's a big commitment, it's expensive, you're probably going to come out with debt. So I like to talk to students before they go into these professions, these professional professions, before they make that commitment, and kind of advise them and just tell them what it's like on the back end in a neutral way, and so that they can make a more educated decision.
That's awesome. It's a great way to give back to those looking to go, to go into all the debt and that large commitment, like you mentioned. Not that it's bad, but it is a big commitment, no doubt about it. And just to have somebody like yourself that's been there and done that, so helpful. Well, Seth, I'm grateful to have had you on the show and to catch up and just to get to know you better, and just hear your story again, and just how you came, from where you came from to where you're at now, and have been so disciplined and accomplished so much, and have learned so much about passive investing, now helping many others do the same thing. Even how you've grown some in your business and the software you're using. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. So my podcast is called the Passive Income Attorney Podcast. Check it out. It's on all the platforms. The website is passiveincomeattorney.com. There's a few free gifts on there for download. So check that out. And also look at lawcapitalpartners.com. That's the private equity website.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.